Are you ready for an epic story of love, war, and death? A story of a woman who ruled over an ancient kingdom, who defied the most powerful empire in the world, and who died for her honor. A story of Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. The woman who captivated the hearts of 2 Roman generals. But before I start, I have a message for Netflix. Please don't ruin history by casting a black actress to play Cleopatra in your upcoming series. Cleopatra was not black, but white. She was of Greek origin, and she spoke Greek and Egyptian. She was proud of her heritage and culture, and she did not try to change her appearance or identity. Now, without further ado, let's begin the story of Cleopatra. Once upon a time, Cleopatra was looking at the Great Nile from the window of her palace in Alexandria, thinking about her fate and the fate of Egypt. She knew that Rome threatened her existence and her rule, and that she could not trust anyone but herself. She remembered her previous life, and how she fought for survival in a world of men. Cleopatra was born in January 69 BCE, the daughter of Ptolemy Xi, the king who ruled Egypt after the fall of Alexander the Great. Cleopatra was of Greek origin, but she learned the Egyptian language and culture and loved her people. She was smart, beautiful, and talented in arts, sciences, and politics. When her father died in 51 BC, Cleopatra took over the rule with her younger brother Ptolemy Xi, whom she married according to Egyptian traditions. But her brother did not love her or respect her and tried to seize the throne with the help of his advisors. So Cleopatra had to flee to Syria, where she gathered an army to reclaim her right. Meanwhile, Julius Caesar, the leader of Rome, entered Egypt in search of his enemy Pompey, who was killed by Ptolemy. Caesar wanted to rule Egypt as a fiefdom for Rome and to settle the dispute between Cleopatra and her brother. He took Ptolemy hostage in his palace and sent a messenger to Cleopatra to force her to negotiate. But Cleopatra did not succumb to Caesar's pressure, but used a clever trick to meet him. She hid herself in a heavy carpet and sent it to Caesar's palace as a gift. When Caesar opened the carpet, Cleopatra came out of it beautiful and charming and amazed him. When Caesar saw Cleopatra, he fell in love with her at once and admired her intelligence and culture and attractiveness. He released Ptolemy and restored Cleopatra to her throne and became her lover. She gave birth to him a son named Caesarion and traveled with him to Rome, where she lived in his palace. But Caesar and Cleopatra's relationship was not acceptable for the Romans, who saw Cleopatra as a threat to their sovereignty and culture. They stirred up trouble against Caesar and accused him of treason and greed. One of his relatives and friends, Brutus, killed him in the Senate on March 15, 44 BC. When Cleopatra heard of Caesar's death, she was very sad and afraid for her life and her son's life. She returned to Egypt and tried to maintain her independence from Rome. But Rome did not leave her alone, but sent one of its leaders, Mark Antony, who was a friend of Caesar. When Antony met Cleopatra in Tarsus in 41 BC, he was impressed by her beauty and charm and fell in love with her. He became her lover too and gave her gifts and lands. She gave birth to him twins named Alexander, Helios, and Cleopatra Selene. He returned with her to Alexandria, where they lived in luxury and splendor. But Antony and Cleopatra's relationship was not acceptable for the Romans either, who saw them as a threat to their empire and interests. They provoked a war against them, led by Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir. He accused Antony of betraying Rome and being under Cleopatra's spell. Antony prepared to fight Octavian, his former ally and rival. His advisor, Enobarbus, urged him to fight on land, where he had the advantage, but Antony refused because he felt proud and honorable. On September 2nd, 31 BC, the battle broke out between the two sides. Octavian's fleet was larger and stronger than Antony's, but Antony trusted in the skill and courage of his men. But in the middle of the battle, something unexpected happened. Cleopatra's fleet, which carried her wealth and children, withdrew from the fight and fled to Alexandria. Antony followed her, leaving his men in a state of shock and anger. Octavian seized the opportunity and attacked the rest of Antony's fleet with force and destroyed it completely. He won the battle and became the master of the Mediterranean. He sent a message to Cleopatra, offering her pardon if she handed him Antony alive or dead. But Cleopatra refused to submit to his order and locked herself in her palace, trying to negotiate with him. When Octavian arrived in Alexandria, he besieged the palace and ordered to capture Cleopatra alive. Antony tried to fight him in a last desperate attempt, but his army betrayed him and joined Octavian's side. He felt frustrated and abandoned and thought that Cleopatra had been killed. He stabbed himself with his sword, bidding farewell to the love of his life. When Cleopatra heard of Antony's wound, she managed to hide herself from Octavian's guards and sent him a message asking him to come to her. She brought him to her palace and lifted him with a rope to her window. She hugged him and cried over him and tried to save him, but it was clear that his wound was deep and fatal. He told her to forgive him for everything and to keep her honor and pride. Then he died in her arms. Cleopatra felt very sad and angry at Octavian, who shattered her dream and her love. She sent him another message asking him to bury her with Antony and to leave her children the kingdom of Egypt. But Octavian did not agree to her request, but wanted to take her alive to Rome as a prisoner and a war trophy. Cleopatra realized that there was no escape from her painful fate. She hid in her palace a poisonous snake called the asp in a basket of fruits. Then she received Octavian calmly and kindly and pretended that she was ready to surrender to him. But after he left, she asked her 3 maids to bid her farewell. Then she opened the basket and took out the snake and made it bite her in her chest. She felt the poison spread in her body and closed her eyes. When Octavian returned to Cleopatra's palace, he found her dead with her 3 maids and the venomous snake. He felt amazed and sad and could not help but admire her beauty and courage. He ordered to bring Antony's body from his burial place and buried him with Cleopatra in one tomb in honor of their love. Then he declared himself the Lord of Egypt and took Cleopatra's and Antony's children to Rome as prisoners and hostages. And so ended the story of Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, who fought for her freedom and dignity and loved with all passion and loyalty. She became a symbol of beauty, intelligence, and strength, and influenced culture and art through the ages. Shakespeare wrote a play about her named after her, and Hollywood portrayed her in many movies. Cleopatra remained alive in the memory of history. Thus, we have reached the end of the story. If you like the video, support us with a like and do not forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends.